So, so, once again, we are back. And this time around, I have a partner in crime. Say hello to my audience, Mr. Taxman.
Hey, Robert, thank you very much for having me.
So, tonight we got a couple of stuff in store, right? We're gonna be talking about the daily polls that we do, obviously, on my Twitter page every single week. We're gonna take some of the questions that are gonna be popping up on the chat room and have a little conversation. But before we start everything, right? We wanna know a little bit more about you, how you got into Impact Wrestling, and who and what motivated you into opening your YouTube channel.
Well, the last part is the easiest, so we'll just start with that. Essentially, I was thinking about doing an impact review page, I guess, but I didn't know which direction I wanted to go, and I was gonna start it during the summer months of 2017. Um, to be honest, it wasn't very good, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside. I got busy with home life and all that kind of stuff, and then when I had heard that the new regime was going to take over, I thought, well, hey, that's a perfect time to actually start something up. Why not start with something fresh? And at least if they have fresh ideas, then perhaps I can have a fresh perspective on the product. So that was kind of my thinking behind it. But I've been watching Impact on and off for, geez, I would say about 2004 even. So it's been a couple of years. There were some really good times and some not so fond memories, if you will, of the past product, as I'm sure you're quite aware. But
Yeah, yeah. I think I have been a loyal customer of Impact Wrestling. I think since 2005, October 2005. The only time that I did not watch the show, I refused to, support that, was during the Gaborik time. During that time, I didn't, watch the show. And when once I heard like Matt Hardy was the champion, I was like, hell no, I ain't watching that. Once Billy Corgan took over, that was how I got motivated into doing this sort of stuff, right? So let's talk about the polls for a second and have a little conversation about that. So let me share my screen, right? The
yeah, for
question
sure.
is the following: out of the new crop of Impact Wrestling talent in 2018, who is the most impressive so far? The winner was Sammy Callahan. The people on the poll were Sammy, obviously, Brian Cage, Su Young, and also left like an open question for someone else. Do you agree with that poll?
I would say it's kind of hard not to agree with that. Just you watch Sammy Callahan, just the progression that he's had since he got there, and notwithstanding the Eddie Edwards incident, just his level of comfortability. I know that's not how you pronounce that word per se, but just how he looks in the ring, how he acts, and how he presents himself. Um, Even before the Eddie Edwards incident, we'll say you could just see the progression, and then you hear him on the teleconferences, and that he really wants to be a part of this, and really get the product moving in a certain direction that he feels it should go. And then you factor in the Eddie Edwards stuff, and dude, you can't print enough money that for this guy to be able to do essentially what he's done with his character and the direction that he's decided to go. So, yeah, I cannot argue that he's probably been the most impressive person that they've brought in terms of where they started and where they are now, and also to draw eyeballs towards the product.
I think into a sense he feels like he have to prove his detractors wrong. And by the way, now it dawned on me that this feud could be like the Impact Wrestling version of the Chris Benoit and Kevin Sullivan feud from I think '95 or something along those
Oh
lines.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that feud. So the next poll that we got, and this guy is controversial. Every time I do a poll with the guy, I like to do it because there's always some mixed reaction, right? And the poll went like this: in what position Josh Matthews' talent shine the most? As a announcer, as a manager, as a social media guru, or as a fucking gun from the company? And he went 44 to 44 and 12% gun. So it was it was not a clear finish on this one. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? How do you see this whole thing? How do you see uh, Josh Matthews shining as a talent on Impact Wrestling?
So for me, this is kind of a two-part answer. First off, I want to say that he's been doing an absolute dynamite job in terms of the social media aspect of him. Once again, I'm going to go back to this whole the teleconferences that they've been doing weekly. I think have been a really tremendous way to showcase the talents that they have brought in. Most recently, they had Kira Hogan and Hakeem Zayn, I believe, in the most recent one. But the way that he moderates those and puts over the product, not so much of putting himself over. And that's what I kind of find with a lot of these social media guys. It's always, kind of themselves first, then the product, then the interviewee, if you will. So I think he's been doing a tremendous job of that. So I think that's where he's most valuable. I do like his work as a commentator. However, I don't think that you need, or I don't think that he should be the quote unquote heel commentator. And I made this point to you, Robert. I'm not sure if you remember or not, but I had made the point that it's almost impossible to have him as a heel on camera and then babyface the company off camera during the teleconferences or whatever. It doesn't make sense. Why would you want to almost hate a guy when you're watching the television shows, but then you have to kind of switch gears and respect him during the social media stuff? I'm not sure if you think the same way or not, but
Yeah, yeah. He having like two hats at the same time. And by the way, shout out to Larkin and to George Bridge who are in the chat room. So he have like two hats. He have the voice of Impact Wrestling hat, and at the same time he also have like the heel announcer. And there is some cognitive dissonance in that idea. So I will let this thing to the audience. How do you feel about Josh Matthews? What are your thoughts seeing him? How he works now with Don Callis? How do you think? I think it is hard to tell. He's one of those dudes that it is hard to point out, and he's not let's say someone who won't work hard. You clearly see that he did a superb job with the Twitch transmission during the whole Lucha Underground versus Impact Wrestling, and he was the one, basically the producer of this whole stuff. So let me go to the next one. I got this one. How would you grade this week episode of Impact Wrestling? That was the one that was last week, April 26, 2018. And the grade was a B. How do you feel about it? Do you agree, disagree? How are your thoughts about?
yeah, I would have to say that the B grade, if you will, is probably the way to go. There was enough new angles, I think, coming out of Redemption that they were able to touch on in that episode. Um, it was kind of recap heavy. I did, and I don't know what you thought, Robert. What was the point of that opening Austin Aries bit of the show? Like that was I had such a problem with that, and I'm not sure if anybody else did, but it just was so it was odd. I don't know what to make of it.
I think it was a showing doubt into a sense, like breaking the paradigm of, let's say, having Aries as the face of the company, but at the same time he lost the belt to Pentagon Jr. Now he lost the belt. He can no longer be the leader, right? And you got the next leader in line, Moose, questioning him. However, I understand the rationale behind all of this, but I don't think that should be the first segment after a big pay per view.
No,
After a big pay per view?
no.
Hell no.
That was just what a to me that's an awful place to have that. Like you just had your champ lose to essentially an incoming talent, and that's what you're gonna open your show with. Like I understand they're showing him with his arm in the sling and he's hurt and whatever, and he gave it his all for the company, if you will. However, you cannot portray your champ who just or your former champ who just lost the night previous to as being that weak in an opening segment of your coming out show of a pay-per-view. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm reading the chat, and there are some people say, hey, they like Josh Matthews as a heel manager. I kind of agree with that. I think his best position so far was when he was kind of working together with Lashley. I think that pairing could have been something, but him and Seidel are kind of similar in stature. Let's say you have Josh Matthews with Lashley, who is a huge dude. Then you have that contract between a talent and the manager, and that is one of the things that hurts when you have shorter talent. You cannot have a manager. It is kind of counterproductive having a manager who's almost the same size as the talent. So
I have to agree with that 100%. And then the other part of it too, just if you're gonna have that dynamic where your manager is roughly the same, well, not stature, but the same height, anyways, is there has to be a defining difference between the two or a contrast, like you said, with the Lashley and Matthews. It's the contrast is obvious, right? What they should have done is if you have Matthews as Seidel's manager, then why does Seidel need to say a word anymore? Almost, you would need Matthews to kind of evolve into that mouthpiece because he's obviously not going to be the muscle. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be something that separates him and differentiates him to be that manager or higher power or whichever direction you want to go. But you can't just have him there. It serves no purpose.
yeah, I agree. The next question that I have is the following: do you see Congo Com becoming an Impact World Champion in the near future? And the people, the democracy, said 48% outstanding no. What are your thoughts about this proposition that I did over there?
So I'm going to agree with the majority, but I perhaps have a different point of view or reason for it. I don't think that Congo Kong is a guy that you need to put the title on. I think he's a guy that's better served to be the obstacle or the roadblock or essentially the monster that you have to defeat to get to that next level. There's you in wrestling hierarchy, and this is kind of lost to me in a few different companies. There's no ladder of progression anymore because there's so much 50-50 booking and feuds that are so short-lived. In Congo Kong, you have somebody now that your lower tier guys move up to the mid tier, right? Your or mid card, right? Then your mid card guys can run into a guy like Congo Kong and have 3, 4, 6 week program and really showcase, okay, they're the underdog. They can, either step up and get past this monster and then move into a title picture, or they can't and then they switch gears and move on to a different program. So I would say no, just because I don't think that Congo Kong needs the title to be elevated. I think that Congo Kong can elevate others just based on what he is. And and he is essentially the new monster of Impact Wrestling.
I think, to be honest, it is. I fell into the category that it is too early to tell. I think if he would work a little bit on his look, kind of fine tune it, I think he could be not necessarily a long time champion, but he could become a champion. What I fear is that he could, not only get the spot of being in the next abyss, right? But also earning the reputation of abyss, and you know that abyss took a lot of losses, sometimes unnecessary, and that is something that I will not want to see. And I know Congo Kong is not a spring chicken, a spring chicken, but he got something that not a lot of people in Impact Wrestling have, is that he's tall as hell, and he gets a lot of views like on social media. You see his name, his numbers and stuff, and let's say you put that guy, walking, let's say, into India, where everybody is shorter than when you compare that to the states, or even here in Puerto Rico. You send Congo Kong here, he's impressive just by the way he is. If you fine tune him, you can find, you might find something there. As for today, let's say, his pairing with Jacobs, it have been great. They complement each other. They have good chemistry. They look apart. The same stuff we were talking a second ago. You see, Jimmy Jacobs. He's not. He's a small. He's a small dude who have like this emo type of look, and then you got this savage Congo Kong, and there is a construct between them, and that is what you know works, and also is missing in professional wrestling, because the art of being a manager have been lost. Only you got a select few people that can get it. They are not out there to get themselves over at the expense
So
of the talent. Go ahead.
I'll throw this out to you. So because it's an interesting point that you just brought up, when was the last time, and you can almost go through any wrestling promotion, when's the last time that you can remember a really good manager? And I'm not talking about a manager who's bigger than the talent that they're managing, a la Paul Heyman. So we're going to exclude him right off the bat. But I'm talking about a manager who can elevate the talent that they're working with. Who's the last one that you can remember in recent history that was really good at that?
Whew. As for, I think Scott D'Amore. Actually, that was the right out of my mind. Scott D'Amore. May. Oh, let me
You're
think.
talking about with the Team Canada stuff, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah, he was really good in that role.
Yeah, he managed to get his guys over when he was the manager. But
See,
yeah, go ahead.
for me, and like I'm going to jump out of promotion here real quick, but um, I'm not sure if you were watching Ring of Honor about 2010 to, I'm going to say, 15 or so, when Truth Martini was managing, and he, to me, was a guy who got it. He knew how
Yes.
to elevate talents rather than getting himself over. Right, he had the Book of Truth. The things that he did with Jay Lethal and especially Matt Taven was just like, that to me was some of the best managing work that I had seen in a long time. And I think that what you're seeing now from Jimmy Jacobs is going back to that. Okay, I have this guy. I'm gonna make this guy the guy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. True Martini. Yeah, I saw some of his work. He was good at. He died, right? If I'm not mistaken, right?
No, well, he's alive if that's what you mean,
Yeah.
but he I don't know what happened there with, I think him and Ring of Honor had a little falling out there. He's got a wrestling school. Um I can't remember what state he's from. Maybe somebody will figure that out, or maybe I'll find out myself right away, but I think he just got fed up with whatever there and left, and started up a wrestling school, is my understanding.
Okay, yeah, yeah, he's alive. Sorry, True Martini. I didn't want to kill you. I was
Yeah.
I was just asking a
No, no,
question.
no. We'll save that when we bury people later in the episode.
Yeah.
Come on.
so so go ahead, Impact Wrestling, if you're listening to this podcast, send him a email. Hey, True Martini, what are you doing? Come join us on Impact Wrestling. So, I got another question, and this one comes to us from the good guys from also that belongs to the Wrestling with Wrestling family. They are the guys from the Clock Cleaners podcast, and they asked this simple question: does Impact Wrestling need an authority figure? What are your thoughts about this one?
So, do I have to watch my mouth on this podcast, or can I? Can I?
You can say whatever the fuck you want. I don't care.
Well, don't. Goddamn! Don't bring in a fucking any authority figure. It's so done. Name the last time that any authority figure drew money. Was it Vince in '99? Like, in all honesty, I'm asking because I can't think of any other authority figure angle that drew money. All they seem to do is put whoever the authority figure is themselves over. Look at Impact last year when Jeff Jarrett brought his boys in there, and you had goddamn Bruce Pritchard's dumbass as the authority figure. How did that one go? It was a fucking disaster.
I think more than anything, I think it is. How can I put it? I don't think Impact Wrestling have the discipline to have an authority figure. The same as having like a invasion angle or a big like a stable. Those three things, Impact Wrestling should stay away with it because those tools obviously work. But what happens? You need to have discipline. If you don't have enough discipline, you will go overboard with it, and you're gonna fuck it up. And this, yeah, it is time to keep it simple, stupid type of mentality. So I think that is the way. And by the way, ever since like the whole what is the WWE name, the Authority, I think that is the faction name.
Yeah, that's how you can go with it. Yeah, the authority, the
Yeah,
fucking.
yeah. I think they kind of blown that angle for at least the next 2 years. I don't think any promotion should be running a big type of authority figure angle.
See, and it's funny you say that. And again, I'm going to jump promotions here real quick, and I haven't been following it lately, but now apparently you have Bully Ray as some sort of heel general manager authority thing in Ring of Honor, and it's like, like what a waste. And then what does it do for your? It does nothing for your TV, right? Those angles they don't draw anymore because it's so obvious what's happening. It just seems like such a waste. That's 20 minutes of a heel authority figure cutting a promo every week that should be better spent on getting your current talent over.
Yeah, yeah. That is another good point that you're bringing in. I'm gonna add the point that I made before. That also require discipline, and time management also require discipline. And still to this day, Impact Wrestling have a little bit of problem with time management. What I am talking about, the retro matches that they show every single Impact, they are too long. Take advantage of that airtime. Just show 1 minute clip, something along those lines, and move it on. Get some,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So if they don't have enough discipline, just to say, hey, let's cut this piece of video and add, let's say, a promo from one of our talent from today, then if they don't have discipline for that, they won't have discipline for anything that could be a little bit more complicated, like an authority figure.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Next question that I have in line: do you see DAC winning the Impact World title a la Chris Sabin? What are your thoughts on this?
I'm I don't know just yet. I yeah, but his health is going to be part of it, isn't it? Because did he not just come back from a big oh, what did he do? Did he rupture his colon or something like that? Well, I know that was last year, but still, that's a big injury to come back from.
Yeah, he took
I'm
like a 450 splash, and he have like a colon rupture, but from internal.
Yeah.
That's insane. An insane injury.
So, like, good on him for coming back from that, obviously, and at what I'm sure everybody heard the reaction that he got at Redemption. Like, it's you're talking about guys who, and everybody makes this thing. Oh, Impact. All they do is bring in old, washed up. So this guy he was made there, right? He's from there, and it's good to have somebody that they made come back to the promotion rather than bring in one of these, washed up whoever. But do I see him winning the title? No. Do I see him challenging and possibly holding the X Division title for a bit, or doing something in a tag team title context? I could see that, but I don't know that I see him as a world champ.
What I was thinking is the following: what would happen if DAC won the exhibition champion this summer and then came in to challenge for the belt and have, like, let's say, a redemption story, no pun intended. So you got DAC returning from a big injury just to make this his dream happen, that it was becoming the world champion. I won't be surprised if that would happen, but myself, my, let's say, safe bet would be Brian Cage gaining that title to challenge during the summer for the Impact World title.
uh, for me, it's way too early for Brian Cage to have any sort of a title. I think you got to have him chase for a while. A big guy like that, that as innovative as he is and everything else, like, I don't know. I think he needs a little bit longer in the company than a 6 month start, and you're going to put the strap on him. It just doesn't make sense. And I sure don't want to see. I know that this is kind of a hot button issue because of Redemption, but I do not want to see Brian Cage hold the X Division title. I just think that it's not a good look for that division. That's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, yeah, I see where you're going. Well, I'm gonna bring this subject up because I have an idea on my mind. I said on the Hillcast, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. And you have obviously have to do with Brian Cage, but let's not get distracted. We have the last
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
We got the last one. How do you see the legacy of Gail Kim? This one won by people voting for that she helped the KO division. Do you think she, at the end of the day, helped the division, or kind of held some people down inside of that division?
See, I'm not. I personally, I think that she helped it immensely. And I point to the absolute wars that she had with Awesome Kong. Like, those were incredible. And you got to remember, in terms of context, that was at a time when you essentially had fluff in the WWE with their divas or whatever, who were 110 pounds soaking wet sports models who couldn't work a damn. And then in TNA at the time, you have these two just setting it on fire, and it was incredible to watch. um I know that there was some talk about her being very title savvy. Maybe that's a politically correct way to say it,
Yeah.
but at the time, like, who else in that division was really in a premier spot like that, or able to be elevated into a premier spot like that? You really had like her. You had obviously Awesome Kong. ODB was around then, I believe.
Yeah.
You would have had
Roxy.
Mickey James.
Roxy
Yeah, she
Lavo.
was there too. Yeah, and that's about it. They had a lot of women on the roster, but not a lot of main event women, if that makes sense. And I'm not obviously knocking them in terms of skill set or whatever. I'm just saying what they had at the time.
I think into a sense it is more of a problem of reliability. I think she was more reliable than most of the other talent. I see her the same way that I see Jeff Jarrett. He gets a lot of heat, but at the end of the day, he was the reliable one. He was the one who was there in the same match for AJ. He was reliable. So those are the guys that when you have a company that it is not a solid one, you may have to rely on those people who are reliable. You are not gonna road the boat too much.
And
So
actually, Cool Man just brought up two others, and I did totally forget
yeah,
Velvet Sky and Angela. Yeah, they were really good too. But yeah, in terms of like, she did so much to carry that company on her back for quite a while, and just yeah, I don't for all of her political whatever you want to get into aside, like there's no denying that she is and probably in forever in their history is the most influential knockout that they've ever had.
yeah, and that is one thing that a lot of people may not understand, and the people that are not big fans of the beautiful people, but they sure bring a lot of numbers. If you were to do a just a little bit of research and go to YouTube and see who are the most watched videos, I bet most of them are gonna be from the beautiful people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, they got like a lot of people who obviously are were fans of their that partnership. They were over. Let's not get it twisted. They were over during their day, and that is something that is undeniable. And I know it is. At the end of the day, you know what I think? It is because who created that gimmick. I think that is marks. Yeah, it was because of that. Hey, I'm now at like the YouTube page. Look who's here, Angelina Love. Angelina Love.
Yeah.
Brittany Madison Rain. Yeah, Angelina Love once again in Velvet Sky. Velvet Sky. The beautiful people. Yeah, and those are their biggest. This is sorted by their most watch uh, ranking and stuff. We're talking about 7 8 million views each one of them, and most of them involve the beautiful people. So I know there's some people that may not like them, but they were over as hell. That is something undeniable, and they have a star power. So I'm gonna bring the question that I was teasing earlier during this broadcast. Who do you think, or what match do you think it is the biggest match Impact Wrestling could build with their current roster?
Oh, I got a good answer for this, and this is possibly one that may surprise a few people, but well, maybe not if some of you have been listening to what I've been saying the past few weeks. But I would absolutely love if they could build an angle with Rosemary and Abyss, the demon Abyss, reforming as well 2/3 of Decay against Su Young and Congo Kong as like the monsters, and have like a, in my opinion, you could build this thing for like 6 or 8 months if it was done properly. Could you imagine the vignettes and the promos that these four just wrestlers, and then you throw Jimmy Jacobs into the mix? The amount of creativity, it would be insane. Like just based on, and you got to remember too, Abyss had quite a bit to do, and everybody forgets this about the broken Matt Hardy stuff. Look what he did with that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine what he could do in a, essentially it's a monster horror flick, but you could have it set in a wrestling environment. It could be so incredibly different, so off the wall, but work. And I just think, and I would hope that they wouldn't hotshot something like that either. But intergender wrestling, which is a hot button issue right now because there's people for and against it and whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But so you have intergender wrestling, you have four strong characters, like four wrestlers that are totally different, completely different from anything else out there. Now you factor those into the creative aspect of a guy like Jimmy Jacobs being in the mix. And then once again, with the new regime, if they would allow these four to build that story themselves and say, here, guys, here's the ball. Where do you want to go? I think it could be something completely different and absolutely special if they would be hands off a little bit and let the talents kind of dictate where that one should go.
Yeah, I get to see. I see the point that you are making. The how can I put it? Intergender wrestling. It is a hot topic issue, but at the same time, it brings a lot of recognition and eyes into whoever is doing that, and there's a lot of people interested in that sort of thing. And you might be somehow right. By the way, I forgot to mention, Abyss, Mr. Chris Parr, also has is having a hand with the feud between Sammy Callahan and Eddie Edwards, according to some rumors that I read on the internet. So it must be truth. So if you read it in the internet, it is 100% true. But outside of the
Oh
joke,
yeah,
yeah,
everything on the internet is true.
yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So, so actually, in reality, it looks like it, like they wanna do that and have this match into, how can I put it, that he's one of the brains behind this whole operation, Mr. Chris Park. So that means that it was a win putting him on the booking team, so he could rest his body, because holy cow, did this man took a lot of unnecessary bumps, and also he is working quite good as a booker, and he also have that TNA label, the Impact Wrestling label, into the sense of being a homegrown talent, and that is one of the things they are missing. I would rather have someone from the house, if you were to say, right, than to have an outsider being the judge of whatever is happening on Impact Wrestling. I'd rather see, let's say, uh, Christopher Daniels, once he retired from wrestling. I would rather see him back on Impact Wrestling, even if he just have like a backstage role, and just as an agent. I'd rather have a spot for the guys who were there during, you know, uh, earlier time than to have somebody new who doesn't have that emotional or personal attachment to Impact Wrestling.
And a guy like Christopher Daniels as well, it just you can't really put a dollar figure or measure or whatever 20 plus years of wrestling all over the world essentially. The amount of experience and just ways to work a match and ideas he would have and finishes, just why would you not want a guy like that around essentially?
Yeah, he have a lot of experience all over the world, not only in the U.S. He wrestled here, he wrestled in Japan, he wrestled all over the world. So he is one of those guys who his talent uh, and his legacy will truly live beyond him once he's older and retired. There is gonna be people watching his matches. Don't doubt that for a second. He's one of the cleanest workers, I guess, in the world. If you were to say that he's clean, his stuff is clean, 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 clean. Let's talk over for a
Hey,
second. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I just jumping on that point. Yeah, like when you watch his matches, it just everything looks good. There's a reason they call him the ring general. He really is. As soon as you watch 5 minutes of his match, you know exactly what he brings to the table.
Yeah, Christopher Daniels is great. He was the one who caught my eye into watching Impact Wrestling. But that I think that I already told that story. I'm not gonna retell that. I'm gonna be talking about what is gonna be happening tomorrow. We got in store for us so far announced Matsai Dao Taiji Shimori. We also have KM and Falaba working together as a tag team. We got a six-man tag with Drago Fantasma and Aerostar versus DJC, Desmond Xavier, and Andrew Everett. We also have Taya Valkyrie versus Kiera Hogan, and we have what is probably gonna be the main event, Rosemary and Su Young. What would you make of all of these matches so far? What are you looking for? Do you have anything that you want to see in particular?
Well, I'm kind of on the fence a little bit about two of them for sure. One is I'm not sure why you would have a rematch of Taya Valkyrie and Kira Hogan right now. Right, like so, and I'll break this down for a second. So Taya won at Redemption, right? Got her title shot and lost, correct?
Yeah,
So, and that was last week. So Taya just lost last week, and you just had Taya beat Kira Hogan a night before. So essentially, now you've kind of booked yourself into a shitty situation of okay, so now you're gonna beat Taya again, or now you're gonna beat Kira Hogan again. It seems very odd that they would just jump right into this one. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me booking wise. And then the other point I want to make is I'm a little bit worried about the Rosemary Sue Young angle. And I really truly believe that this is something that should not be rushed. They should be taking their time to do it. And I'm not sure how long, by the way, and maybe you can tell me, Robert, how long this taping session is, like how many weeks they're getting out of it. But I would hate for them to hotshot this angle because, in my opinion, they hotshotted the Austin Aries thing when they switched the title off Eli Drake to him real quick. They kind of put all their eggs in one basket with LAX, and they're tremendous, but you could kind of tell the crowd's getting burnt out by them a bit. And now I fear that they're gonna hotshot this one, and we all know what happens when you have a promotion that continually hotshots everything. They just kill all momentum, and eventually you book yourself into a corner and you can't do anything. I would really hope that that's not the case, especially with Rosemary and Su Young, because, like I said, I think that that's a program that could run, you know, geez, well into the summer if they do it properly.
I kind of see your point. I have made the comparisons between the current booking team and what Vince Russo used to do. I'm not
Yeah, well,
saying,
he would do
yeah.
the goddamn Crash TV, and every fucking week was a goddamn disaster. I'm not saying he didn't have some good ideas, but like when you cannot have an angle start and end within 2 weeks. It doesn't make any sense. And then further to that, you cannot have a television program with 12 different angles going. And I'm also worried that that's what they're going to be doing here. Because if you're now going into next week, or sorry, tomorrow, we're recording on Wednesday. If you're going into tomorrow, now you have a semi angle with Kira Hogan and Taya. You have a semi angle with Rosemary and Sue Young. Now you're coupling that with the Eddie Edwards stuff, and now you're also coupling that with the LAX and Eli Drake and Scott Steiner, that problem, and now you're also throwing into the mix like X, Y, and Z. There's too many things going on. It's too much, and I fear that they're just gonna revert to that Vince Russo thing of like, oh, the 2 weeks are up, boom, angle's done, and then what the fuck? Like, what happened? What was the point of any of that?
Yeah, kind of mentioned Vince Russo, and everybody like lost his mind. I'm not doing like to attack Russo because I actually I think I have like a couple of exchanges a couple of years ago, and he have been quite respectful to me. But what I'm saying is, hey, Don Callis is body with Lance Storm, and Lance Storm used to blast Impact Wrestling because of their booking and how much they hot shot and blah blah blah, how terrible they were. However, now that he's battle body, he's doing the same shit, but actually without having the same amount of success. You know, his silent speak for itself. It is, a double standard, and that I found, extremely fascinating. And I think everybody is on the same page when it comes down to the internet. It is not like, hey, we don't want Su Young versus Rosemary. That is not the case. It is like, hey, why is this happening on a random impact? Because it is not like some special type of impact or who have like a topic or a team or something along those lines. This is just a random ass impact. And you're gonna,
And then
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
further to that, so what's one of the biggest complaints of every wrestling company out there today is that there's nothing makes sense, right? Because of either 50-50 booking, or you hot shot everything, right? So why would you do that to something that could potentially be game changing, in my opinion?
Yeah, and an angle that you probably should have it, like, let's say like an act arsenal, right? You want to have this as ammunition when things could be a little bit down and ratings are a little bit low. Then you will use that, that ammunition. I don't think there is not enough reason to do that at this moment in time. I was talking last night to Impact Dude, and he told me that he was praying to all the gods, everybody on the skies, that tomorrow match between Su Young and Rosemary ends up in some type of shenanigans. Do you feel the same way?
I don't think that you can have that match end in one of them getting pinned by the other one. That's a disaster. If that, in my opinion, that's completely a disaster. There should be some kind of there has to be something happening with the finish that prevents that from happening. I don't know what something is. Obviously, Braxton Sutter's. Well, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be on this episode or not. Maybe that's what they do. Maybe he interferes. I know he's not with the company anymore, but perhaps he's part of this taping. But there has to be some way to get out of this match, or not even let this match happen. Like maybe Ali runs down the ramp and attacks Su Young or something, and they don't even have the match. But in my opinion, you cannot have this match end in a pinfall. It cannot happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I truly don't know. By the way, I have a question. If anyone in the chat room knows, the what's up with that? Who is booking the knockouts division? Why am I asking this? Because I was surprised during last week episode of Impact Wrestling that Ali beat Taya in like 4 minutes, something along those lines. I was expecting this, that match, Ali versus Taya, to be a big deal. Those are two of the, most condecorated talent that you have on the female division, and you just gonna put that match on a random impact for 4 minutes, and that's it.
And the finish, like, I don't. I want to preface this by saying I'm not knocking Ali's athletic ability or wrestling prowess or anything like that, but how have they booked her? Like, if you look at the way that she's been winning her matches, it's basically Ali gets her ass kicked for 3 minutes and 50 seconds. She gets a fluky little bit of offense on Taya, and it's boom, 1, 2, 3, and she retains. But that seems to be like the formula for every match lately that they've been booking Ali. And even the one when she won the title from Laurel Von Ness, the last round of tapings, it was Laurel Von Ness beat the shit out of her for whatever it was, 5 minutes or so, and then Ali flukes out a super kick and gets the pin in the middle of the ring. It's just like, what does that do for her character? How can I invest in her as a champion if A, she only has 4 minute matches, and B, it's just her, getting killed for most of it and fluking out a win? What does that say as her for her as a champion?
Yeah, I see the way that you are seeing things, and I was it is not like, hey, I was expecting Scott Damore to be like the savior of the knockouts division or anything like that. That is not what I am implying or anything along those lines. But I was expecting a little bit more out of him. See, because he was supposedly the main booker during the good old days of the knockout division. And I don't know what is the pressure that is going behind the scenes, but eh, I think into a sense they might run out of ideas, or how can I put it, fresh matchups, unless you're gonna keep like a rolling door and you're gonna build this new Impact Wrestling as they say the UFC, where talent come and go, and that's it. What is over is the promotion, UFC, but not that much the talent. Of course, they rely on the talent because they put like John Jones and people like that. But the main attraction is UFC. And there is another thing that I need to, I'm gonna be repeating myself, but that was a comment that I did like a year ago, so it is fresh now. So there is a lot of value in hype. I have said a couple of times, the one of the most over game video games out there is Call of Duty, right? And
Yep.
have of the reason they're over is because of their hype packages. They have an amazing uh, talent in doing that. Made the game deliver? No, no.
Well, that depends if you like it. Those who like it a lot, I suppose. And
Yeah, but it depends a lot of hype, and that the same happen a lot to movies. You see a movie and you see the trailer and oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever, but not really. However, I'm not implying that Impact Wrestling needs to be deceptive or anything like that. That is not what I'm advocating for. But I am saying is, hey, take advantage of that hype train. Take advantage of this. This is one of the easiest form of viral type of promotion that you can get. If you can get your preaching fans to share your stuff everywhere, then you have a winning combination because that is something that won't cost you anything. You just need to tap into them, not necessarily the mark who's watching talking about wrestling at 12 in the morning. Not those type of fans. But the preaching fans who talk to their other friends and tell them, hey, check this out, this is where I think they could be missing the boat. They could have something with Su Young versus Rosemary, but if let's say their match would have the tag as the first time ever, I think that would also add a lot more power into the feud. The same as not having that match in the Impact Zone. Why? Because you want to have a bigger entrance, something more eye appealing than the usual Impact Zone. Those are,
not only that,
yeah, go ahead.
the crowd too. Like the let's be honest, the Impact Zone crowd for the majority of whatever sits on their goddamn hands. Now, would you want that crowd available for your money match? And that's what I think that Sue Young and Rosemary are. Or do you want a hot crowd that's paid money because they want to see these two go at it because they built up a hell of a program?
Yeah, yeah, I get your point. By the way, I'm gonna defend for a minute the Impact Zone. I know this is not like the what gets over on the internet, but I have been in the Impact Zone. I was there in 2010, but believe it or not, they don't have anything mic'd down on the Impact Zone. What you're hearing on TV are the shotgun microphones, like on the camera. And I know you have worked with video and audio, and you know that that is not gonna pick up the whole sound of the room. There's no way. It doesn't matter how loud it is. So there is also a argument to be defended. I think that is something that they should invest in making that crowd a little bit better. Also, they how can I put it? The way they do the mixing for TV. You take a look at that sound wave. You gotta notice they are mixing like it was like a karaoke match, a karaoke song, right? When you're singing in a karaoke, all you can hear is your voice, and you don't hear most of the music. I think that is the same way they are mixing the shows, and that adds insult to injury. I think those are little details that they could fix without any cost of money. Those are, I might criticize Impact Wrestling here and there, but none of the solutions that I provide or things that I point out are, let's say, hard to fix. It is just simple, at least to the eyes of just your regular average fans. Get someone better to do the audio editing for the show. By the way, Who is the one leaking the show? And everybody knows about that. Everybody who have been in the internet knows about that. The impact shows get leaked like during Thursday
Well,
morning. Yeah, go ahead.
does somebody live tweet that, or like I don't get it.
The, what do you say? Can you please?
Like, did is there somebody at the event that just live tweets everything, or how does that all work? Because it's so bad. Like, just the spoilers are terrible.
Oh, that is another thing. What I'm talking about is that there's someone who works. I don't think that he works on Impact Wrestling, but there's someone who works on one of the TV stations who upload the full show a couple of hours before. Even on YouTube, I have been like checking like keyword phrases and stuff for obviously for the YouTube channel. And when I'm researching like search terms and stuff like that, I just found the full show on YouTube like Thursday at 1 p.m. What the hell?
I've
How
never seen that. I never heard of that before.
yeah. Tomorrow I'm gonna probably DM you showing you the screenshot of the show probably because someone like uploads the show a couple of hours before. There's
So is that them off their page?
yeah, the full show. It is the full show.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, and and people should know about that. And the impact whoever's working on their social media and copyrights and stuff should know about that.
Yeah,
And yeah, go ahead. And another thing is the spoilers. I'm not like anti spoilers or anything like that, but the way they are, plastered all over the internet is like insane. When you see like NXT, they guard that like it was a classified document or something from the U.S. government. I mean, but when it comes down to the Impact spoilers, they tweet that shit out all over the internet, and even the wrestling journals, the wrestling journals tweet about that like without like having like the decency of saying, "Hey, this is gonna be a spoiler" or anything like that. So, but
see, my
yeah, go ahead.
my problem with that too is when you have some of these journalists, use the term loosely, who tweet out spoilers. They usually do so without any context of what actually happened or transpired in the match. So they're gonna go and say, "Oh, this happened in Impact on whatever day," but deadpan it, right? To almost bury it before it's played on television, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is a dishonest behavior, and I'm gonna make a historical example of this. Not that long ago, Impact did an angle with Josh Matthews and Matt Sydal, and Sydal had the grand title and the exhibition title, and he decided to give that title to Josh Matthews as a as a prop, as a gift, right?
Yeah.
Not something to be written in the history books, not a clear win or anything like that. What did the people decided to do, right? They decided to tweet out the spoilers. Guess what? What is the propaganda being used? What do you want to do, right? You want to point out, hey, Impact Wrestling is doing the same stuff that WCW used to do. They put the title on Arquette. Now Impact is putting the title on Josh Matthews. Ha ha ha! They're going out of business. That is the same propaganda, and then they do it every single week. They're like the Doomsday Cult, but instead it's like let's hate on Impact until they go out of business. And it is dishonest. And the people who tweeted that, I'm not talking about Ryan Satin. He's a saint, but the people who tweeted that, obviously they did it with malicious intention. And there is a way you can separate what is a legal and fair and square type of journalism. But this time, that type of stuff, that is not necessarily propaganda into a sense, but activism. That is clearly activism.
Well, and the other part of it too is it's just you're perpetrating a narrative that just doesn't exist anymore. You know, you always get the oh, they've done another reboot, or whatever, or they've done it before and now they're just gonna go back to whatever, or you'll hear so and so left again, but it's you never hear who's coming in, right? It's just everybody's trying to work a specific angle, it seems, instead of just let's see where this plays out and enjoy the ride, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, and there's I don't want I think I'm going off the rails once again.
Oh yeah,
Eh,
yeah, we're going to hell in a handbasket here, brother. Like this.
but I'm gonna go full balls deep. And there's people who still journalists. We're talking about the journalist scum of the wrestling business, who still refer to Impact Wrestling as TNA. Why do you? Why? They know better. Why? Why? It
Because
is.
it's lazy, it's easy. That's why.
I don't see it like way that way. You know how I see it? I see it the way so you can pinpoint all stereotypes about TNA and pin that one into the new management. It is dishonest. It is totally dishonest. It is disgusting. They should be ashamed of themselves because if you truly wanted wrestling in general, your business to grow, you should be at least half fair to any single promotion out there, and that include Impact Wrestling. It is totally dishonest that people still journalists that should know better should refer to Impact Wrestling just as TNA, because I think that is the whole reasoning behind it. I just want to just say this guy, these people are TNA, therefore I could use the old stereotypes on them.
And the other part of it too is you can tell who is actually watching the current product, and who is just getting a report, we'll use that term loosely as well, from some schlub somewhere who has probably zero idea what they're talking about. You can tell right away when you listen to or read about their review or their thought about an episode or a segment. It's so blatantly obvious that they can't even be bothered to take the time to watch the product. Just like they can't take the time to write four extra little letters to change it from TNA to Impact and say the name of the company properly. It's just it's shoddy journalism. It's just, but unfortunately, you can't change shitty business practices from these people. It's just unfortunate.
And you know what I noticed, and I shouldn't be attacking other people. I should be a guy, a saint or something, but I am not. But I don't know if you noticed, there was people basically rushing to do like a Impact Wrestling Redemption 2018 review. Not people who cover the show every single week. People who do not cover the show. Let's hurry up, and say the propaganda that the show was terrible and you should not order that and blah blah blah. And how would you do that? How would you do that? They went in like you will see if you do like a little bit of research. You will find out people who don't cover the show, who now are somehow the subject matter expert when it comes down to Impact Wrestling, telling you how terrible it is and blah blah blah. It's the same trash that had happened for a long ass time.
And it's the same. It's just recycled, rewash, recycle. It's the same narrative. There's nothing different about it, and that's that. I'm getting back to my other point. That's what I mean. But by you can tell who's actually taken the time, invested their time to watch the product and actually give a proper and fair observation about it, rather than you know, oh yeah, I saw on Twitter that so and so won this match and it sucked, so I'm gonna write in my article that it sucked.
Yeah. There's a lot of this, not necessarily dishonest into a sense, but like activists.
Well,
They're
it's
yeah,
it's lazy.
yeah,
It's just lazy. They just can't be bothered to do a proper job, and unfortunately, people who may want to get interested in watching Impact Wrestling, unfortunately, are exposed to negative. Well, you're right, propaganda like this, and if I hear that a show sucks 50 times, why would I watch it?
yeah. Even if it is a stretching the truth or anything like that, they're willing to do that, and I highly disagree with that type of deal. I do not appreciate that. You know, I should keep my mouth shut when I go, and attack people. But there's a couple of cats around there that they do it because they see like Impact Wrestling just by existing is a threat to the world wrestling entertainment. That is insane. I don't think Impact Wrestling have the plans or the means or the ideal or the right tactic to even grow their brand into, how can I put it, taking power from the people who have. Uh,
No, they
yeah,
have to carve out their own niche,
yeah.
right? Let's be honest here, and there's no company, wrestling company, in the next probably 30 years, I will say comfortably, that is going to get anywhere close to the level of success of WWE. And that includes WWE because facts are facts. Their viewership is down drastically from what it used to be, and so is live event buys and so on and so forth down the list. Just wrestling in itself is not as popular as it was 15 or 20 years ago, for that matter. But what Impact can do, as a positive to that, is to build something different and give people a different reason. Like, okay, you don't like WWE for this, we're going to give you this. That's kind of direction that they should be going, not focusing on what anybody else is doing and trying to copy it, or starting another Monday Night War, because we all know how well that went for them back in the day. But just they need to find their own niche and find their own way to get their product out there, rather than trying to mimic or piggyback off the success of WWE.
I'm gonna say something a little bit like kind of like controversial. So everybody who is,
Ooh, here we
yeah,
go.
yeah, who might get like offended or anything like that, you need to put your big pants on right now from this time on, right? I'm giving you a fair warning, right? I am one of those people who, how can I put this? I am not uh, see this whole thing like Impact Wrestling as a brand and World Wrestling Entertainment as a brand. I think if you run this type of race, that is a race you cannot win, no matter what you do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. However, if you see it in a context that I was alluding a little bit uh, passed by, as those who have power and those who do not have power, I think that this is a fight that it is easier to win if they are willing to use a little bit more of, uh, let's say, dirty tactics. And I'm gonna be quoting a controversial book, right? There's a famous book called Rules for Radicals, right? It is basically power politics, right? And Impact Wrestling back in the day used to do a lot of those tactics without knowing. When the time that they have people chanting TNA on the World Wrestling Entertainment Arena, into a sense, it was because of that. They kind of got that type of knowledge without actually understanding it, unless and until they're willing to change the lens change the lens and see things in a different way, they don't have a chance. I'm gonna use a example, a, a recent example, right? So we got the 2016 election, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you sure did.
yeah,
Jesus.
right? You know where this is going. One of the big rules of this book, the book called Rules for Radicals, it is that the most potent weapon in the repertoire of the human psychic is not necessarily like bullying, but poking fun of your opponent. And you saw during the campaign the Trump side using this clearly as a daylight. Why? Because it was a unfair, believe it or not, it was an unfair race when it comes down to money. It was 3-1. Three to
Oh, I'm
one.
sure it was more than 3-1 even at that point.
Yeah, 3-1. And some of his in the politics he was playing versus her, it was dirty politics. Those are dirty tricks. But guess what? They work, and that won't fail anywhere else. And if you got take a little bit of more of a deep dive into power politics, you will see the type of knowledge and stuff that you have in that type of dirty politics. And I think if they really have these, let's say, we want not necessarily to beat World Wrestling Entertainment. That is not gonna happen for the near future. But take power away from them. That is the best, one of the best tools you can use without costing you a lot of money. But guess what? You might need to reframe different things. The way you talk on TV may have to be a little bit different. The way you talk on Twitter is gonna be a little bit different. Not necessarily like, hey, we are this white flag people, we're the peaceful people. No, something. I'm gonna use the word, kind of radicalize your audience into a sense of making them rabid. Not necessarily like fuck you WWE, but no, our shit is better, and if you don't like it, take it off the ass. Fuck you, but not like us against them, but us. We are the real deal, and you are the funky and funny one, and making fun, having that type of public humiliation into a sense. And that is something that they used to do. I was watching just the other day because I wanted to review this show, the second show that they did, Turning Point 2004. What was the joke of of that show? The angle of Vince McMahon with the, he had like a cock, the one that is like,
Oh yeah, they were DX was on the stage and they were doing the yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, it was rules for radical. It was that same mindset. It was rules for radical. They were all night long poking fun at the other side of town. You're not attacking. You're saying, hey, why would you want to be with those silly people? That is what you're basically saying.
And it obviously worked.
Yeah,
It just but there's no reason why it couldn't work again, but in a different way, in a more productive way.
yeah, and you're not at out of the end of day. It works and it doesn't cost you anything. The rule, I finally found the rule. The rule goes like this: ridicule is man's most potent weapon, and that is true. That
It
is
is
true.
true, 100%.
Yeah, the same.
That's the reason why body shaming is such a thing too, right? Like it's the easiest way to get at somebody or get under their skin with the least amount of essentially effort.
The same. There's another one that applies. A good tactic is the one your people enjoy. You saw that during the 2016 election. What did the Trump base wanted to see. They wanted to see Hillary Clinton on a jail. Guess what? Every time they mention anyone who was a Republican, mention that. Guess what? People
Yeah,
ate it up.
exactly. Yeah.
So I think that is the way that I see things. I not necessarily see world wrestling entertainment as the enemy or anything like that. I see like, hey, these people have a lot of power, and if you could manage to take a little bit of that power away from them, it would be better for you as a company and for wrestling as a whole.
See, another thing they can focus on too is having their, because it's, obviously a much smaller fan base, but you should be able to develop enough connections and interactions with your fans that you can really give people, your fans, a sense of belonging, a sense of community. And that's one thing that with WWE, as big as they are, because they're so big that it can't happen, right? But with a smaller company who is growing, you can build now, right now, build that sense of community. So when you're ready to expand and go into live shows and maybe run more one night onlys or whatever their business plan is for the near future, now you're set up in a far better position because now you've established that community. Now those people are going to bring their friends to a live show. They're going to say, hey, Impact's coming this weekend. Do you want to come with me? Right now you're building upon your fans rather than, just having, what do they call it? The WWE universe. But what is that? That's not a community. Nobody gets a sense of belonging to be a part of corporate manufactured title. What you want to do is build an organic community and an organic sense of belonging. And I think that they could, and they have been doing that with the amount of interaction they do on Twitter, on Facebook, the Twitch channel. Just, you can see their numbers are growing exponentially. Just on Twitch alone, I think they're up 300,000 subscribers or whatever, something ridiculous like that. But that's the way that you can get people interested without reinventing the wheel. And then when they are interested, then you give them something different and something they could really sink their teeth into and be like, you know what? I gave Impact a shot last Thursday and it was fucking great. So I'm going to watch it next week. And you can continually build from there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna. This is basically my last comment on all of this. One of the another of the rules of this is, hey, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Never go outside of the expertise of your people. What are the Impact expertise, if you were to say the what does it made Impact Wrestling? We got two things. Number one, the X division. Number two, the Knockouts division. Those
Yep,
are two
100%.
things that you should be the subject matter expert. The 205 live experiment is not a successful one, to say the least. To be fair to
Well,
those
be
guys,
nice
yeah.
about it, yeah. But
Gotta,
it's not a knock on the talent. It's how they've their presentation and whatever
it's
is.
terrible.
Anyways, we're not gonna, we won't bury that right now. But
Guess what? Now you should have the next target. Your next target should be the female division. You need to beef up your female division and start to not necessarily outdone for wrestling entertainment, but pick up that ground. I see it like a mountain, right? If you are in any type of, let's say, competitive stuff, you have a place that might be the sweet spot, right? You might need to regain that. That should be one of my priorities at this moment in time. Why? Because that was a mountain that used to belong to Impact Wrestling. And number two, there is a lot of animosity at the time being due to the whole Kingdom of Saudi Arabia controversy. Take advantage of this. Not a lot of people were, happy to say the least with that idea, because you might say, "Hey, what the hell? Why are you doing business with these people who are the most orthodox of the whole East?"
Yeah, I have to agree. It's you almost have to strike while the iron's hot, as they say, and there is no better time than now to really showcase that you have the best women's talent in the world right now.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're not gonna throw them under the bus for some Saudi money. that
Well, yeah,
so basically, you need to prove that you have the best division, and on top of that, you have the moral high ground. And it is not about, like, let's say, saying how great you are and virtue signaling and none that on or none of that stuff, but basically saying, hey, at the end of the day, this is what we as a company believe, and there's no money that is gonna change the way we feel about this topic in particular.
totally agree.
Yeah, so I guess this is it for this transmission. Thank you a lot, Mr. Tasman, for joining me on the fun.
Hey, thanks, Robert. This is my first live cast, so thanks very much for dealing with my inexpertise to get online here, but very much appreciate it, man.
So if you are new to this guy, to the Six Sided Podcast and the Tasman, come on, join him. I should have like the his Twitter direction on the screen, and I'm gonna be putting a link on the comment section so you can subscribe to his YouTube channel and check his stuff on Twitter. So that is it for me. Thank you a lot to everybody who joined us on the fun, and I will see you Friday for the Impact Wrestling review, and next Wednesday with another live broadcast. That's it for me. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.